So a male champion is anyone in the workplace who wants to engage in the fight for gender equality at work. And we look to high-level males to do this because oftentimes in organizations, those are the folks that have power in the organization. So we wanted to start with, well, who's in charge and how can they sort of set the tone to make equality between genders more prevalent at work? We actually went and interviewed in-depth interviews with male champions, and we have about 50 male champions, and we also have female leaders that we've interviewed. And the way that we got to the male champions wasn't by asking male champions to nominate themselves, because that might be a problem. There might be some men in the workplace who think they're really good at doing this and they're not actually good at doing it. So we first went to high-level females and we asked them, what males have been influential in your career and who has supported you throughout the course of your career that you could point us to? So they would nominate a male champion, and then we would interview both them and the male champion that they nominated to get a sense of what it was that they thought was really great that the person was doing, and also what the male champion was trying to do, or what their actions were, and also what the intent behind those actions were. Across the board, the men that we spoke to saw talent management as being key to business strategy. So that's one thing, is that talent was sort of tops. Another thing that they're doing, though, in conjunction with that, is not just being a good talent manager, but also recognizing that bias might exist for the women that they are mentoring and making sure that they're actively addressing that bias. So we interviewed a man that was saying he was in meetings a lot with high-level women, and he would notice that they would start sharing ideas, and oftentimes guys would interrupt them in the meeting. And he noticed this was happening only to the women and not to the men in the meetings. So he actually stopped a meeting and said, please let her finish. She was in the middle of her idea, and from now on, no one is going to interrupt each other in these meetings. And all the women in the meeting noticed that and thought, well, this is really great, now I can finally get my thoughts out. But he was doing it specifically to address what he was seeing as a gender bias issue, and it really helped the women to be able to be more participative in meetings and to have a better seat at the table because they could actually finish what they were trying to say. So one thing that I would urge students in the program to consider is that, you know, the impetus for this study arose from the fact that Anna Marie Valerio, my co-author, is a consultant and for years would do workshops on women's leadership or engaging women in leadership, advancing women's careers, and the whole room would be full of women. And this was part of the frustration that both of us experienced. You know, I would give talks on campus on women's leadership, and it would be all women in the audience. And we started to think, well, you know, it's pretty clear that women get it, that there are certain barriers that might exist in the workplace and what they need to do to navigate those barriers, but that's only one half of the conversation. If you don't have males at the table who are going to support those efforts or who are going to address their own biases or who are actively willing to support women in the workplace, that conversation it's going to constantly be a battle as opposed to a collaboration or a synergy. And so I would urge students to think about, when they see these sorts of programs cropping up in their own workplaces, participating, if you're a man, to try to learn more. And women actually remembered this. So when we interviewed female leaders, a lot of them said, well, you know, this guy would come to every women's leadership program. They remembered specifically that this high-level male would come to these programs, and he would say, I went to them because I wanted to show everybody that it was important to me. So think about attending things that you haven't attended before, setting that tone for people on your team, or setting that tone right from the beginning in an organization that this is something that's important to you. And then also thinking about paying more attention to the ways in which your own biases might be affecting the way that you manage or lead, and remembering that, you know, every person that you miss out on is a missed opportunity for talent, regardless of what demographic group that person belongs to.